say that it's a privilege to be here. Pam, Chris, Carly, Sophia, Antonia, Josephine, Jennifer, Amelia, Josephine, and others. All the people here are intimately engaged with the world and with making, and they're curious about other ways of thinking and being, and I felt respected and invited and included very prominently. What is it to be here? Nowadays, artists do residencies. I haven't done many residencies. The art world is a swarm of creative productivity and networks. In transit between the way we think and the way we make, artists move across a shifting ground that defines the conditions and limits of meaning. So stepping away from the familiar paths for making and the demands of everyday doing, artists in residence, literally air artists, learn somehow to re-inhabit a space to make. So my question was how to construct a vantage from which to work and speak, when vantage includes the way in which things come into question, even as they come into view. I think of artists listening for the sound of their time and of listening as a methodology. Listening to contemplate our environs, not just around us, but also within. In 2015, with support from VCA, where I'm doing my PhD, I went to Japan on a residency, travelling in and around Kyoto. I visited Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines to experience the remaining ritual practices and beliefs of ancient Japan, and also to practice different kinds of meditation. A lack of proficiency with the language opened up an unworded space for listening and internal dialogue. Allowing place to write itself, I made sound and film recordings. I think of these recordings as scores in a listening attitude, and I'm still working with material gathered from that residency. So sound, like a thread, can be cut, a knot or a loop, or can be loose or sometimes tangled. I made a sound work to accompany Chiharu Shiota's installation for the Melbourne International Festival last year, called Between These Worlds There Is No Ordinary Continuity. Weaving fragments of ritual, mantic sound from Buddhist and Shinto ceremony, Japanese theatre and court music, the composition is shaped by silence, thresholds, and the attention to entry and exit points they demand and mark. A vagabond investigation. My work looks at the way things resist translation or come to show themselves differently. An apprehension of contingent orders. The work doesn't have a set form. Sound, idea, object and modality are collated to set up space for something to exist. A space in which the work moves towards an opening, at the same time asks questions about itself. An aside. My research considers the movement of the aside as a poetic strategy in art. We know the aside as a dramatic technique used to persuade the listener towards considering a topic from a different perspective. An oblique gesture that moves attention to and incorporates the periphery of what is shown. I'm interested when the movement of the aside is from a type of framing or commentary to being the work, when the aside opens a way into something that wasn't accessible before. Insignificant things at the periphery of what is shown, things that go unnoticed, unmarked, or unquestioned, become important. Reading changes and produces a text. For I Was Reader Now, I traced readers' marks in printed volumes from Emily Dickinson's collected works. Dickinson wrote in pencil on scraps of paper with her own system of punctuation, and later transcribed these pages into good copy using ink. Her papers remained ungathered until later in her life, when she stitched some together as fascicles. After her death, her sister and publisher edited the work into the opus we know now as the collected works. Blank stashes, crosses and stray marks weave across her manuscripts, but in the printed editions, these links between inscription, accident and revisioning are lost. By isolating notations and dropping out the main text, the record of readerly engagement remains. Simultaneously asides to selves and read as asides by others, the previously unimportant, even illegitimate readers' marks that are traced in these works, make visible the movement of attention, and shift the mode of address from a personal, often solitary experience into something communal, a public fiction. Here nothing stands alone, and the work points to an illegibility that reveals our own deep embedding within discursive structures. I'm interested in the relation of thought to form, things in formation, finding form. Co-authorship is one way of keeping things open. So No Notes, This is Writing, was a continuous collaborative work between Francesca Rendle-Short and myself, written on iPhones that arose out of a shared interest in what it means to practice writing or something other. Written as a form of note-taking with no revision, almost as if the inner voice was spoken out loud. The book is a drafting in action made concrete in poetic notes. We performed the book as public readings, choral, cacophonous, unrehearsed, in which the losses and lapses in shape of the whole take shape as the performance or reading of the random pages of the text. Scores in a listening attitude, the Tapestry Workshop. It has a particular hive or temple-like quality that interests me, patternings that are communal, ritualised, quiet, open and productive. So I propose to notate the sounds and movements that form part of the weaver's creative work, to transpose the incidental, unscripted gestures and accidental sounds and the play of bodies that occur when the weavers weave. My project has nothing to do with tapestry in a literal sense, but much to do with the line, the thread, the weave and the annotative space that is activated in the process of making. Early one morning I recorded Chris and Pam and made a series of drawings using different encodings developed from musical notations and children's drawing. The weavers were working on posters about the rights of the child. A glimpse into the open, middle of making, these unworded drawings will be sung, recited, sounded by two female voices, an antiphonal duet like bird song. I'm yet to record the sound part of this work. Eavesdropping in the workshop reminded me of humming, when part of my attention is occupied elsewhere and absorbed, and that leaves space for other kinds of less focused interaction, like when children draw and mutter to themselves, or when you suddenly notice the thickness in the air in a life drawing class or just before the lights go down in the cinema. A transposition, which is a threshold, a score, mostly unreadable, a weave to be sung. I value the unexpected possibilities activated by the open score when others take a share in creating the work, and the play between worded and unworded speaking and song. My work is a way of bringing the chorus on stage, so to speak, and the movements of making are an attempt to be permeable to experience and not so much to relate it. So 5 of one and 6 of the other, talking about a revolution, is an open score for simultaneous public reading. And I invite each of you to sound out your pages, to begin reading, finish reading whenever you like. 7, 8, waiting. Most critical things. The colours. And that's my red. And fire. Which is cold.
And in the night. Didn't rain away. And the rain.
Think or notice. We're in between. It's just getting. It's not
rain. Shower.
It's not really very quick.
For the rest of the day,
It's just. Do you know?
Slightly better. Some people
Think or notice.
us as well.
We're in between. It's just getting. It's not really. It's not. Really not. Number 7. Waiting. Most critical. The colours. Thank you.